In just 47 seconds, $18.7 million vanished from federal oversight. Jasmine Crockett didn't smile. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even blink as two of America's most powerful law enforcement officials realized their carefully constructed lies were about to crumble on live television. Cameras captured the exact moment when arrogance transformed into terror, when power met its match in the form of a Texas congresswoman, armed with nothing but truth and the courage to wield it. What did Crockett reveal that made two FBI careers collapse in real time, sending shockwaves through Washington's corridors of power and igniting protests from coast to coast? The morning had started quietly enough. Capitol Hill staffers shuffled through security checkpoints with their usual Monday lethargy, coffee cups steaming in the crisp November air. But by noon, word had leaked that today's hearing would be different, explosive, career-ending. The kind of congressional theater that makes history books and destroys reputations in equal measure. At exactly 2:14 p.m., the House Judiciary Committee chamber buzzed with anticipation. Mahogany panon reflected the harsh fluorescent lighting as reporters adjusted their cameras. The gallery was packed with victims' families, their eyes burning with years of unanswered questions. FBI Director Kash Patel sat like a man who'd rehearsed his answers for weeks, his expensive suit betraying nervous perspiration. Attorney General Pam Bondi fidgeted with her American flag pin, briefing folders stacked before her like shields, her legal team whispering frantically in her ear. Committee Chairman Jim Jordan attempted to project authority, but even he seemed uneasy. The air conditioning hummed, yet the room felt suffocating. C-SPAN cameras captured every angle, as Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC prepared for what their producers suspected would be must-see television. Jasmine Crockett entered like a prosecutor who'd already won the case. Her navy blazer was crisp, her expression sharper than the mahogany edges surrounding them. She carried a single manila folder that seemed to weigh nothing, yet somehow commanded the entire room's attention. Behind her, a young staffer wheeled in a cart stacked with bankers' boxes, evidence that made Patel's eyes widen with recognition. "Before we begin," Crockett announced to the chamber, "I want the families in the gallery to know that today, finally, they will have answers." A murmur rippled through the room. Patel's lawyer leaned forward, whispering urgently. Bondi's face had already begun to pale. "Director Patel," Crockett began, her voice cutting through the chamber's tension, "you testified under oath that the FBI conducted no surveillance of Jeffrey Epstein's associates after." Patel's jaw clenched almost imperceptibly. His wedding ring clicked against the microphone as he adjusted it. "That's correct, Congresswoman." The Bureau's resources were redirected to more pressing national security. "Stop." Crockett's interruption was surgical. "Just stop." The chamber froze. Even the cameras seemed to pause mid-focus. A victim's mother in the gallery leaned forward, her knuckles white, as she gripped the railing. "Director, do you recognize this signature?" Crockett held up a document to the overhead camera. On screens throughout the chamber, Patel's distinctive scrawl appeared in high definition. His pupils dilated slightly. "I sign hundreds of documents. I can't be expected to." This one authorized Operation Silent Island. "Ring any bells now?" Bondi's chair squeaked as she shifted nervously. Her chief of staff, seated behind her, began frantically typing on his phone. She opened her folder with deliberate precision, each movement calculated for maximum psychological impact. "This is an encrypted FBI communication dated March 15th, 2023. Your signature is at the bottom, Director." The subject line reads, and I quote, "Liquidation of Epstein Digital Archive. Immediate action required." Should I continue reading, or would you prefer to explain why you authorized $18.7 million for an operation that officially never existed? Patel's face drained of color faster than spilled milk on concrete. His knuckles went white as he gripped the witness table. The leather padding beneath his palms began to show sweat stains. Beside him, Bondi's eyes darted between her notes and the exit like a trapped animal calculating escape routes. That document is classified, Patel stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's. Was classified, Crockett corrected with the precision of a scalpel. Past tense. Because 3 whistleblowers came forward yesterday. Would you like to hear their names, Director? Agent Sarah Martinez from the Financial Crimes Division, Senior Analyst David Chen from Counterintelligence, and your own Deputy Director, Michael Torres. The blood drained from Patel's face so quickly that the chamber's physician moved closer to his position. 42 seconds had passed since her opening question. Social media was already exploding like a digital wildfire. Crockett Exposed began trending as clips spread across Twitter faster than news outlets could process them. TikTok videos were being uploaded in real time, set to dramatic music that made the confrontation feel cinematic. Instagram stories multiplied exponentially as young Americans shared the moment when corruption finally met its match. Reddit threads spawned by the dozens, with users dissecting every facial expression, every nervous gesture, every telling pause in Patel's increasingly desperate responses. Impossible, Bondi whispered, but her voice carried in the deadly silent chamber. Torres would never break ranks. Crockett turned her laser focus to the Attorney General. Apparently, General Bondi, even career law enforcement officials draw the line at covering up child trafficking evidence for personal profit. A gasp echoed from the gallery. Someone began to cry, a quiet, broken sound that made hardened readers look away from their cameras. Maria Santos, whose daughter had been trafficked through Epstein's network, pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in 5 years, she was watching someone with actual power hold the system accountable. Other family members reached for each other's hands, forming a silent chain of shared grief and newfound hope. Attorney General Bondi, Crockett pivoted without warning, you signed the authorization request for these surveillance operations. Operations that officially didn't exist. Operations designed not to investigate trafficking, but to eliminate evidence of it. Bondi's voice cracked like ice under pressure. I won't discuss ongoing investigations in this forum. There is no investigation, Crockett's words landed like hammer blows against steel. Because there are no surviving witnesses to investigate. Convenient, wouldn't you say? Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Even staunch GOP allies began to distance themselves, their body language screaming discomfort. The silence stretched for 4 excruciating seconds. Republican committee members exchanged glances that spoke volumes about fractured party loyalty. Democratic members leaned forward like sharks, sensing blood in crystal-clear water. Congresswoman, you're implying... Patel attempted to regain control, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not implying anything. Crockett pulled out a second document, this one thick with bank statements and wire transfer records. I'm stating facts, backed by financial evidence, that your own Treasury Department provided. Maxwell Associates received $12.4 million in federal contracts during your tenure. The same firm that managed Epstein's digital communications archive. The same firm that, according to IRS records, ceased operations exactly 72 hours after the last evidence was destroyed. Gasps rippled through the chamber like dominoes falling. CNN's cameras zoomed in on Patel's trembling hands. His wedding ring caught the light as his fingers shook. That's a coincidence, Bondi interjected, her voice barely above a whisper. A $12.4 million coincidence. Crockett's eyebrow arched. How much does coincidence cost these days, General? At exactly 2:17 p.m., Fox News cut their feed. MSNBC broke into regular programming. The chamber erupted as reporters fought for better angles. Director Patel, Crockett continued, relentlessly, her voice rising like a conductor building to crescendo. Would you like to explain why your personal bank account shows deposits totaling $8,000 to $47,000 during the exact months these contracts were issued? Wire transfers that originated from Grand Cayman accounts registered to shell companies with no legitimate business purpose? Patel shot to his feet, his chair rolling backward into his legal team. This is character assassination. This is a witch hunt designed to— Sit down. Crockett's command was quiet, but absolute, carrying the weight of moral authority that silenced even the press gallery. We're not finished. He sat, deflated like a punctured balloon. General Bondi. Crockett's attention shifted like a sniper's scope. Your real estate investment trust purchased 3 properties in the Virgin Islands between 2022 and 2024, properties previously owned by Epstein's estate management company. Total value, 20. Your documented federal salary for those years, $74,000 annually. I'm curious, General, did they teach supernatural multiplication tables at law school? Bondi's face had gone ashen, a sickly gray that made her look decades older. Her hands shook as she reached for her water glass, nearly knocking it over. Water sloshed onto her notes, smearing ink like tears. Math isn't my strongest subject, Crockett said, with deadly calm, but even I can see that doesn't add up. Unless, of course, you're working a side hustle that pays better than protecting American children. Within minutes, protesters gathered outside the Capitol like storm clouds forming. Signs reading "Lock them up" and "Justice for Victims" filled Pennsylvania Avenue as crowds materialized from social media calls to action. Police barricades went up as crowds swelled beyond the thousands, their chants audible even through the chamber's thick walls. Inside the chamber, Patel made one desperate attempt at deflection, his voice breaking with each word. These allegations are baseless conspiracy theories designed to undermine law enforcement, integrity, and destroy the institutions that protect. Crockett smiled for the first time all afternoon. It wasn't pleasant. It was the smile of a predator who'd cornered her prey. Director, are you familiar with blockchain technology? She didn't wait for an answer, producing yet another document from her seemingly endless folder. Because cryptocurrency transactions are permanently recorded, including the 8047 Bitcoin transfers from Maxwell Associates to an account registered under your mother's maiden name, Rose Patel. Sweet touch, using family for money laundering. The room erupted like a dam bursting. Committee Chairman Jim Jordan gavelled frantically for order, his face red with exertion and embarrassment. Security moved toward the witness table as Patel's face cycled through shock, rage, denial, and finally defeat. I need to consult with counsel immediately, Bondi whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. You'll have plenty of time for that, Crockett closed her folder with finality, each movement deliberate and theatrical. Because I'm referring both of your cases to the Inspector General for immediate criminal investigation, and to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution under RICO statutes. As security escorted both witnesses from the chamber, Patel stumbling like a broken man and Bondi clutching her lawyer's arm for support, Crockett remained seated, composed, victorious. She'd done in 23 minutes what years of investigation, hundreds of millions in taxpayer funding, and countless victims' families had failed to accomplish. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Twitter exploded with "Crockett destroys corruption" trending globally within the hour. TikTok videos broke down the financial evidence in 60-second clips that reached millions. Cable news analysts called it the most devastating congressional takedown since Watergate, with some comparing it to the Army McCarthy hearings. By evening, both Patel and Bondi had retained teams of criminal defense attorneys from white-collar powerhouse firms. Their combined legal fees would eventually exceed the money they'd allegedly stolen, an irony not lost on late-night comedians. 3 weeks later, federal prosecutors filed a 47-count indictment, including conspiracy, money laundering, obstruction justice, and violation of civil rights under color of law. Both resigned in disgrace, their security clearances revoked, their reputations destroyed beyond repair. The Epstein files were finally released in their entirety, revealing a network of corruption that reached into the highest levels of American law enforcement. Sometimes justice doesn't come from badges or subpoenas. It comes from a single Congresswoman armed with receipts, courage, and the devastating power of truth delivered at exactly the right moment. What happens when America's law enforcement elite put personal greed above justice? Ask Jasmine Crockett. She has the answers, the evidence, and the backbone to use both.